Welcome, everybody, to the Good for Business show. I'm your host, Michelle J. Raymond, and I am joined by the wonderful Jen Corcoran. You are my third guest from Ireland in a row. What's going on there? Luck of the Irish.
Third time lucky.
I think I set you up for that. I set you up, third time lucky. So, for those people who haven't come across you before, Jan, tell us a little bit what it is you do and how you help other people.
Okay, so thanks so much for having me, Michelle. It's great to chat to you on the other side of the world. So, like you, I'm a LinkedIn trainer and consultant, and I specialize in helping service based female entrepreneurs. And my absolute favorite clients are introverts, empaths, and highly sensitive people like myself because we are different. And I think the non HSP way of marketing doesn't really resonate or align with us. So, I help my clients to really polish up their profile and to connect with finesse in a way that feels aligned to their personality, their goals, and their energy, because I'm all about the energy. And as an introvert, an empath, and a HSP, I have to really manage my energy. So I'm really excited to be chatting about this topic today with you.
And it's a really interesting conversation. So, we're going to give people probably two different perspectives. So, what you and I are opposites in. So, I'm the typical extrovert. So, I love being around people. You're the introvert that has to manage the impact of people around you. But we're both HSPs. So, that's a highly sensitive person. So, it's going to be interesting. I'm curious to hear how it plays out for you on LinkedIn. And I'm sure, one of the things that I've learned about LinkedIn is there's no one size fits all on any of this. So, and I think sometimes where people come unstuck is they're trying to mold into somebody else's way of doing things, and it just comes completely, just sideways.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some people that are joining us today, Jen, that don't actually know what is an empath or a highly sensitive person or an introvert that we've just been talking about.
Yeah, I think an empath really is all about the feel. So it's basically you feel everything. So I can go into any room, whether it's a virtual room or a physical room, and I can feel all the energy from the people there, like my friends. So I can feel if someone's had a fight, if they're in a bad mood, if they're pretending to be in a good mood. It's like a kind of a magical antenna, and I can just pick it up. So I have to be really guarded with my energy and surround myself with energizers versus drains the whole time. So that's the empath thing. You're just constantly feeling everybody's feelings, and as well you've got deep feelings yourself. And a HSP, I'm pretty new to it all, if I'm honest. I read a book. I'm going to do a quick flash up on the screen. So I read this book, The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine Aron, about less than a year ago, and it was like a million light bulbs going off that I was a HSP, because before I just kind of labeled myself initially as an introvert, then as an introverted empath, and then reading that book, it was like, wow. So basically, a HSP, I used to think sensitivity was all about just the brain, and you're a bit emotional, you take things to heart. But then reading that book, it made me realize that we have a different nervous system, so it's physical as well. And I've always really been able to feel things within my body. My husband Mike is always like joking and telling me, stop body scanning. And then I read in that book, it was kind of like, there's a reason I body scan. I'm just really in tune with my body and how I feel. So it was really eye-opening for me to learn that like 1 in 5 people, like your good self, are HSPs, because I always thought I was like this oddball. Because one of the features really is your mind never switches off. From the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep, I'm constantly thinking. And I always thought it was just me. And if I'm honest, I thought, because my mother's got mental health issues, I always thought maybe I've got something here that just can't switch me off. So I never really openly said it to people, but I think people knew I'm constantly thinking really deep, have this big inner world going on. Like I've got super imagination, and I spend a lot of time inside my head. So I think, yeah, if anyone's wondering if you are one, do read it, because 70% are introverts, but 30% are extroverts. And I've got extroverted friends who are HSPs. So I think it's just we go really deep, and we can just, all HSPs are empaths, so we pick up on all the feels. And I suppose what I initially thought was a negative, like, the word sensitive, sadly, has become a negative out there. Now I think of it as my superpower, that I can actually pick up on these things when I walk in a room and other people can't. And that actually blows my mind, because I think any frustrations I ever had in life, it was kind of like, why can't they see that Mary's not right? And it was kind of like, well, I was the only HSP in the room that could pick up on that. So I've learned that it's a bit of a superpower. And then I know I'm going off on a tangent. I promise I'm going to wrap it up. So coming back to the introvert, I think a lot of people, there's a lot of stereotypes and myths about introverts. And I think for a start, there are two different types. So there's a fact focused introvert and there's a connection focused introvert. And we're very different. I'm a connection focused introvert, and I actually can't really connect with a fact focused introvert, because we come at things from totally different angles. And introverts can do anything that an extrovert can do. So we can do the public speaking, we can do the networking, we can do the video. It's just, it doesn't give me the energy the way it gives, like, Michelle, the energy. So we can do the hanging out with friends. It's just afterwards we have to plug in and re-energize. So I don't get energy from people the way Michelle does. I can have a really nice time with people, whether it's like one to one or a group. But afterwards, I have to always factor in that downtime to unplug, especially if I do something that is very non introverted and, whatever, stand up in a room of like 250 people and do a talk. I'm going to be lying down on the couch directly after that. So, yeah, for me, it's all about the energy, really, as opposed to the stereotype that we're all like shy, wallflowers, we're not social. It's just all about the energy. And don't get me wrong, I can be shy and I can, want to be under the radar. And I'm completely happy not being in the spotlight. That is my happy place. But we can do the other stuff. It's just about learning how to do it in a way that doesn't wreck us and feels aligned.
It's really funny. And I've talked about this. I did a Good for Business show with Tara Fitness, and we talked about LinkedIn for introverts versus extroverts. And it was really good for me to see things from the other side because, of course, I'm completely the opposite. Hence, I have a weekly LinkedIn live. Actually, I probably do on average 2 to 3 LinkedIn lives a week, and I love them. And it's my way of connecting and getting that feedback from people. And, I love people that join in and all that kind of stuff. And so for me, this is, such a great tool for me to have that connection with people. The other thing that you were talking about how empaths and highly sensitive people, the superpower, how I use mine is I come from sales, right? So I've been selling all kinds of different products for around 20 years. People talk one thing, but I could feel and hear what was going on in the background.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the words coming out of their mouth, but I knew something else was going on. And so for me, it actually was my superpower because one thing comes out and I'm like, yeah, you're talking price, but I know it's not price,
Yeah.
and you could hear what the real issue was. And so this is where things played out for me. So and I find LinkedIn a challenge. And we're going to talk about some of these challenges that people who identify as empaths or HSPs or even introverts, some of the challenges that come with the social media, the social side of it, it's one big crowded place, right? So the question that I have for you next is actually, what are the challenges most common for people that identify as empaths, HSPs, or introverts?
I think, yeah, the first thing is just putting themselves in the spotlight, because deep down we're kind of cringing because we love helping other people shine. And I think so many introverts, I know in corporate, I was in a back office role, was never in a front face of sales role. So we're all about, I'll help you be great and I'll just do my job quietly here. So when they have to kind of toot their own horn in their profile, there are a lot of mindset blocks. So my first thing is really giving them confidence that their profile is speaking for them. And then that's like the first step. And then it's about taking action and getting strategic and reaching out to the right people, because we could all be on LinkedIn all day for hours, connecting with everyone, talking to everyone, and we'd be absolutely drained and we'd be getting nowhere. So I think it's just about figuring out what is your goal? Like, why are you on LinkedIn? Tailoring your profile so that it says that. And if you are going to create content, making sure you are clear, you're giving the same message again and again, and you're not confusing people. And if you don't want to do content, that is absolutely fine. I know when I was in corporate for years, I just had a strong profile. I commented because as an introvert, I love to comment. I love to respond to things as opposed to initiate things. So I would comment on people's posts, whether they were individual or company pages, then connect with them in the DMs and then take it off LinkedIn. And that worked for me for years. So if you're an introvert listening today and thinking, I don't want to make content, you don't have to. Well, your profile is content. It's content that works for you 24/7. So at a basic level, I think once you get your profile working for you, and it can feel a bit icky first, kind of leaning into it. I know when I help my clients revamp their about section, they're a bit like, oh, okay, I'm really bigging myself up. But I'm like, but you are amazing, and you have to big yourself up in the digital world because there is so much competition. So yeah, I think the biggest mindset blocks for my clients, because they naturally just want to do the job, make the website, take the pictures. They don't want to have to go, hey, I'm here. And I can totally relate to this, because when I started up in business, I just thought, well, I'm going to do social media, blah, blah, blah. I never thought I would have to be like, hey, get to know me as a person. So yeah, that has been a learning curve. And your shows 2 to 3 weeks or 2 to 3 a week is my idea of living hell.
I would do it every day. If I could manage to do it with everything else that I've got going on, I would do it every day. I find it re-energizing. I love just talking, no surprises. I bet you were like shocked face, but I just love getting to know people. So here's what happens for me and how that can play out is I want to get to know everybody, literally everybody. I don't care what you do, where you come from. Actually, the wider the variety, the better. There is no like pigeonhole. And so I want to do that. And so what I have to do is actually manage it the other way around. And so I recently got Sales Navigator, for instance. And the reason that I use that is I have my targeted list of people who I want to keep on top of, keep a track of, build relationships with. And I do that first so that I can make sure that I am focused, and then I move back onto, the general platform later in the day. Because otherwise I could literally be that person that 24/7, there is no end to it. Like I will never get tired of it.
Yeah.
I will always find something to do. And I think, that is, can lead to times for other people. It's easy to keep scrolling. It's easy to keep seeing more things. And that overstimulation comes in on LinkedIn. So, what are some of the practical strategies that you would give people to avoid the overstimulation that might come from LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think like two main ones is one, just set a certain amount of time each day to do it, whether it's just like a half an hour in your calendar or 10 minutes here and there. Because otherwise, when you're having the app on all day, you're just going to be reactive and you're going to just feel like you're exhausted, but you've actually done nothing. And it's a bit like when I was in corporate, I was an office manager, and it's the same really with emails. I remember like pouncing on emails when they come in, but the sensible thing was really just check your emails in the morning and check it if you want quickly at lunch and then at the end of the day. And that is fine, and switch it off so that you can actually get on with stuff. I think people forget that LinkedIn is a communication tool. It's not like we still have to do the other things. So you just have to treat it like a communication tool. That's what it is. So that's the first thing I think, is just block off time and stick to it as much as you can. The second I would say is, on your home feed, only follow people and companies that interest you. So I know it sounds really mean, but I only follow probably less than 10% of my network. So I've got about 12,000 connections. So there's, 10, 11,000 people I'm not following, not because I don't like them, but it's just because what they do, their content doesn't really excite me. So I'm still connected to a lot of people from my corporate life, but I'm not in shipping finance anymore. Oil and gas tankers don't like my soul anymore. They never did, to be honest. So it's like I just look at the things that spark joy for me, and it makes it so much easier to then engage, because anytime I go on my home feed, it's like, there's Michelle, there's all the different people I like, and I can make those few minutes count. So I think if you're following everyone, you're not going to probably like LinkedIn. You're just going to have this big blah. it's a bit like if anyone's on Twitter, if you don't put people into Twitter lists, you're just following everyone and it's just a big noise. So I think you have to fine tune and yeah, just be strict with the time. And I hold my hand up. Sometimes I'm not strict with the time and I can fall down the rabbit hole because I do love LinkedIn as well. So I could be commenting all day and scrolling all day, going, this is interesting, and saving it, whatever. So yeah, I think time management and unfollowing.
Yeah, look, and I'm pretty ruthless with the people that I actually disconnect from a lot of people. I'm pretty ruthless with unfollow because for the same reasons. I want to enjoy my time that's on the platform. So yes, it's work, but it's also what I enjoy. I love learning, and the platform is just absolutely incredible from learning for free from worldwide experts in any field I want to choose, and I just think it's a walking, talking encyclopedia that I can just absorb and learn. And, it makes me better. It makes me better for my clients. And I just want to always be learning, as they
Yeah,
say. So, for me, where some of these things play out is when I'm looking at all this content, and it can be, there can be things that trigger. So we've got World Pride Month going on right now. So I'm seeing a lot of great posts that are coming up for that. That's pressing my buttons that I want to get involved on every single post that I see about this and support it. That sets off a chain reaction of notifications, which I then now go and actually stop notifications and mute them so that I don't get bombarded, but I want to support everything, and then it's the next one and the next one. And the more I do it, the more LinkedIn serves it to me. So it just becomes this vicious cycle of, oh, you like to click on that? Here's some more. You like to click on that? Here's some more. So LinkedIn gives me what I want, but I've just got to manage that a little bit because, yeah, as I said, it can send me down a path that I don't necessarily should be going for my business. And I think that's the thing for people that are listening in, just be really clear around what is your reason for being on LinkedIn, what are you trying to achieve, and having that strategy put in up place. And so, probably more to that point about, some of the posts that we see around the world. We've got all kinds of people from all kinds of backgrounds, different countries. It's not lost on me that we can reach any part of this globe pretty much with LinkedIn. But what I find is, as an empath, being sensitive to everything, quite often there's posts and events, especially Ukraine war, we've had bushfires, floods, you name it. It triggers me. So
yeah.
how do you deal with content that's an empathy trigger?
It's terrible, but I do lots of unfollowing. So even if just because I have to look after my mental health, and you can always follow people again down the line. But if something's overwhelming me, it's a bit like the news on the telly. Like I think there was so many times during the pandemic we were glued to it every day, kind of going, what's going on? And then after a few weeks, I was like, I'm going to stop. I'll just watch the weekly roundup. But it was like, because otherwise my mental health's just going to go and spiral. So I think it's the same as that. It's just not, looking after yourself and realizing LinkedIn's there to work for you. And if something's not making you feel good, I've even turned off like fellow LinkedIn trainers if they're like triggering something in me. Maybe it's they're talking about something and I'm like, shit, I need to do that. I haven't done that. And I'm like beating myself on my head and I'm like, don't look at it. Stay in your own lane. So I think it's just about just making it work for you. It was really interesting what you said as well about always wanting to learn, because I think that's definitely one thing we both have in common as a HSP. I I'm constantly learning, and I know I'll be learning until the day I die. So you just have to monitor it because we're
Mm.
never going to learn everything. We want to learn everything, but yeah, I suppose it's about just taking strategic action and just getting on with what you want to do, because we could fill up on all kinds of knowledge, but we have to actually make our time work for us.
Yeah, and we're up against, what we know we should be doing versus an algorithm that's designed to actually undo all of that, throw it out the way, and guide you down a path that it wants you to go to. And I think when you're on there all the time and you don't see it, and it's obviously not telling you, hey, Michelle, this is what we're trying to do. We want you to be on there once a week or, once a day or whatever the numbers are. I think it's once a week is LinkedIn's goal. So if they want you to spend more time, and it's very easy to forget about it. So the thing that I've found is again, coming from sales, I'm really good at sales because I love two things: helping people and problem solving. Now, I am absolutely the best of the best when it comes to that. When I come onto LinkedIn, do you know how many problems there are that everyone in the world's got on every little topic?
A lot.
Oh my God. And so I have to be really careful around, and I'm going to tell you that I haven't always done this very well. It's something I'm more conscious of probably this year than my first year of business, because I thought if I go around and help lots of people, then that will lead to more sales because it had always worked for me. Now, being a business owner and only being, me for my business for the most part, is I was spending too much time trying to be helpful, not too much time growing my business. And you realize I was helping a whole bunch of people that weren't helping me back. Like, it was a one-way street. And if we were to put it on scales, I would have tipped those scales.
Yeah.
Literally, the ratios were way out. And that was on me. That's not a judgment on anyone else. That was me trying to be something, that I hadn't actually stopped and went, what's my goal? And, this is where, as an extrovert and an empath, like, it can be, a double-edged sword on LinkedIn. There's the cool things and the fun side of it, but there's a side where I can get easily distracted by my neighbors, is what my school report card said. And I haven't grown out of that.
I love that.
It is literally the same. And I'd love to hear from anyone that's listening in and joined us in the audience. We've got Mr. Relentlessly Helpful. John Asperian was, listening in. I'd love to know how he identifies, on this, because, he's the definition now. Relentlessly helpful, now got a community. So it's interesting how I think that's playing out for him and, some of the other people that are joining us. So, okay, so we've identified how this can send us off track, and it can also be our superpower. So that, there's two sides to every coin. But how do you go about actually building a strategic community if you identify as a HSP, an empath, or an introvert?
I think, yeah, you just need to be clear on your goals and your niche. And I've struggled slightly with my niche in the past. I think I'm finally on the right track. And I think once you know your niche and your ideal clients, you can find them. When you're vague and you want to help everyone, because we are empaths, we want to help everyone and just give, give, give. You're just going to burn yourself out. And I've definitely burnt myself out in the past. And it was because I wasn't niche enough. I wasn't clear enough on my goals. So one easy way to find your client is if you know who they are. So for me, they are introverts, empaths, and HSP, is look up hashtags. So I look up the hashtag introvert, hashtag empath, hashtag HSP, and I start to filter so I can find amazing people for a start who've got it in their titles. Then I can find amazing content, which again leads me to amazing people. And then I found amazing groups. So if anyone's looking today, like, feel free to have a nosy on my profile and go down to the bottom to my groups, because I'm in a few groups for HSPs and empaths and introverts, both I think in business and as execs. So yeah, just know who you're looking for and be strategic, because it's all there at the touch of your fingers. I remember being so excited to start to reach out to HSPs and putting in hashtag HSP, hashtag highly sensitive person, hashtag highly sensitive people, and finding all these people. I was like, oh my God, they're on LinkedIn. I thought they would all be over on Facebook or somewhere else. And it was like, wow, they're here. And that's my goal this year, is to connect with more of these lovely empaths and HSPs. And so just go out and make it happen. And it's been amazing since I have started to connect with fellow HSPs. I've been having like lots of deep conversations, which is what I love. Like, I'm all about going deep. I don't really like superficial chit chat. It just bores me and it just feels very like surface level and I can't really connect. So I've been getting all these deep responses back to connect. And I'm like, wow, this is so different. This is like blowing my mind and changing my LinkedIn experience. And that's what I want. So I think being clear on who you want to connect with, who is your target audience, and being clear on how you can help them and the tangible benefits. So one thing I've been guilty of in the past was, because I didn't come from a sales background like Michelle, so I had lots of like sales blocks, and I know selling is serving, but I had lots of these blocks. So I think you really need to be clear on your outcomes, because as a business owner, I've been very clear on who I help and how I help, but I didn't spell out the tangible benefits. And that's what people
Mm,
buy. So you can't actually help your people if you're not shouting out, about how you can help them. So I used to take it for granted that everyone used to know, well, you need a good profile. You should get, and you need to connect. But I never used to spell out, so that you can attract your ideal clients and make sales. I just kind of
mm.
had a block about that. So I think, yeah, just being super clear on who you are, who you can help, and then finding them using the search bar. So many people, all my clients, I would say 99% of my clients never use the search bar until we do a session. And it's like opening their mind, and you just think, we're on the Google search bar every day, folks. How many times do you go into Google? I know I'm always on there. Use the LinkedIn search bar because everything is there at the touch of your fingertips. You don't need to put on makeup, get dressed. You can do it in your pajamas. You can, like Michelle said, you can connect to people around the world. You don't need to leave the house. You don't need to show up if you don't want to. You can leave audio notes. I love audio. You don't see what I look like. And yeah, you can just make it work for you.
So I'm going to ask you a question because this is something that I find interesting when I deal with people, and I'm curious to see, given we're introvert, extrovert, if it's related to that or something else. One of the most interesting things that I find is people that have hold events on LinkedIn. So they host the event, whether it's audio, whether it's going to be a masterclass, whether it's going to be a LinkedIn Live. It doesn't matter the format. None of them will press the invite button. Like, they create an amazing event. They may do a post or may not. Well, these days it will create the events post automatically so they don't get a choice, but are so reluctant to press that invite button. Any clues from your side what you think might be at play there?
I suppose two things maybe. One, timing, thinking they don't have the time, or basically not making the time. So one is an excuse to cop out, and the second might be imposter syndrome, kind of just like, oh, I've done this event now, it's great, they're going to find me. But like you say, we have to really bring people to it. And I don't rely solely on content, posts on the home feed, because I know with the algorithm, not everyone's going to see it. So if there's something I want people to really see, it could even be, tagging Michelle in a post. And if she's not commented, I DM the person just so they know that I've, this is going on. So I think it might be they don't want to appear salesy.
Mm,
So it all depends. I think if it's a free event, maybe they share it more freely if they're a HSP or an empath. But if
mm,
it's a paid one, they might kind of hold themselves back. So I'd say
mm.
there's lots of different issues, and I'd love to hear from people watching, like what holds you back, like when you're reaching out to people, or if you're not sharing your events.
Because what I find in my circles that I have conversations with people is that the invite button is a real trigger. Like, and so that can be invites to follow company pages, that can be invites to events, but there is something about pressing that button and inviting people to come and do something, for you that's important to you. But and not even the close connections. I'm not talking reaching out to strangers, I'm talking close connections. There
Yeah.
is a trigger before people press that button. So I'm very curious if anyone's listening into this today, share with me, what are your reasons for not wanting to do that? Because, this is how we become better trainers, is being able to have conversations like this, listen to what the need is, and then come back and be able to present tools in different ways that we think that you can work around that, and find other unique ways that you're more comfortable with. And this is the joys of having conversations, between two LinkedIn trainers, or people that are opposite, so that we can actually all rise together. That's the ultimate aim for me, having these conversations, is to share the cool conversations that I've had with you. And I think my first conversation, when I sent you a message, because again, last year was a really interesting year for me. So my goal, unintentionally, started off at the beginning of the year to be the company page expert. And I'm pretty sure I ticked that off by the time we got to December. But what happened was, I got to December and I was like, it feels like a hollow victory. I love that I've achieved that, but I've not given anyone the real, I'm going to say the real me. And I don't mean it like literally, but I'm like, you haven't seen how much I care about things, that I'm passionate, that I want to help others. All of these other parts with me, I didn't share. So
Yeah.
I made a conscious choice this year to realize that I could be a company page expert and I could be the leader that cared about people, was authentic and open about that, and actually be both. And so now that I'm doing that this year, like, my time on the platform's even better. I'm attracting people. That vibe, attracted tribe saying is just, ringing in my ears. And so now I'm surrounded by amazing people, like you said. And it just has taken everything up that next level. And I feel like it's not a struggle. I feel like it's not an effort. And I feel like it's something that I'm passionate about, that I can keep going through those days where, it's a roller coaster. I'm not going to, tell anyone that it's anything but that. It is up, down, and around, and it's the hardest thing to come to. But I feel like when you have that intention, when you are clear around that intention and really embrace who you are, you can go out and find those people that resonate best with you, whatever that is. It doesn't matter what the thing is or the kind of person, but when you find the right people, LinkedIn's just a pleasure. And everything comes so much easier. I think it's when we're trying to fit ourselves into a LinkedIn version of ourselves, that's when it goes, again, comes unstuck. So
Yeah.
is there any final tips that you would like to leave with our listeners about any tips for, empaths on LinkedIn? I'll spit that one out.
Yeah, I think it's just in relation to what you said. It's just about being yourself. And I can totally relate to that because you put forward this like mask at the start. And it's only since I've started to lean in that I'm quite a touchy feely, heartfelt person. And I like holding my clients' hands. Whereas another LinkedIn trainer might be more, chatting about the algorithm and the stats, and that just bores the pants out of me. I'm just more about the human side. So I think when we lean into who we are, it becomes easy. It's a bit like when you meet someone and you fall in love, it's effortless. It's like you just connect, you are completely yourself. You don't need to overthink things. And I think LinkedIn is the same. So it can take a while because I think we're so conditioned as to thinking we need to do more to be better, more training, more this, more that. And a lot of people, all people always say, just be yourself. But when you're a HSP, and like I said in my head, I just thought I can't be full of myself because I don't know if people are going to think I'm completely bonkers. So, but what I've learned, and I know Oprah actually said this, and she's a fellow introvert, which you wouldn't think, and an empath, but she said if she'd have realized that being herself was the way to go, she would have done it years earlier. And I think, yeah, that's what it is. Just be yourself, figure out who you are, and then be unapologetically you, because I think you will only hate LinkedIn when you've got a mask. And when you start to be yourself and just talk about the things that light you up and that are easy for you, people can feel your energy. They can feel it from a written post, they can feel it from a video. When you're kind of not fully believing things, and the same applies to anything, like whether it's an email or a sales call or an audio, but when you're not fully believing it yourself, people can feel that. So yeah, just be you. And if you can't, if you're really struggling, go and chat to a business coach or a branding coach who will pull your values out of you. Because I think when we're in corporate, I was never taught to explore my personal values. It's just like I'm a minion for the company. I'm all about the company's values. It's like, who am I? And I remember when I started in business, it was like, what are my values? What are my company values? And it took me a good year to kind of figure it out. So explore yourself, do personality tests. I've done like Myers-Briggs, Dig, DISC, human design. Just I think the more you can understand yourself, then the more everything kind of clicks into place and you'll be kinder to yourself and you'll kind of go, that makes sense. I'm like this, and that's why that doesn't resonate. I think we try to put ourselves in a box and we try to emulate people who have completely different personality types, or they're way down the road to us, 5 years ahead, and it's pointless. So yeah, just be you. And if you don't know who you are, find out who you are.
Look, and I can't say anything better than that, because I would normally say to my clients, what we're creating is your digital twin. We're not creating a LinkedIn version of you and then an offline version of you. They are the same. And the more that you align those, as you said, it's just a joy and it's easier and it doesn't take as much time. And you're more likely to be consistent and persistent over a long time. So, Jen, I have loved this discussion. I know we've had a stack of comments that have come in to appreciate everything that you've shared with us today. So thank you again for making time time. I'll let you, yeah, go back. And I appreciate that you haven't been well. So especially, appreciate that you've come here. So thank you. And I hope we get to have more conversations in the future.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks everyone for listening. I promise I'll have a look at your comments after. And yeah, happy Jubilee weekend in the UK. Get out there and enjoy the good times. After a few years of shit, we deserve something nice for a few days.
Exactly. Go be positive and enjoy it. So, content is queen, but apparently it's the Jubilee. So, let's go with that. So, have a good night or a good day, everyone. And we will see you next week on the Good for Business show. Cheers.